Verse 40. Verse 40.
Yeah. Verse 40. It overcomes all opposing challenges. It's free from contradictions between earlier and later paths. It grants fulfillment of being's two aims. For this system may joy increase even evermore. Right. So today, we discuss about this. So better check with the Tibetan. Some Tibetan is it's not here, my son. Yeah. Tendishini matung tele to patung na tugun to tijira shinam de singe de message la sarji phone de kyun gyuma shin to kyoge jidar den ba la ko ge ge chun de lamma yi ba su tanda ma de yuri ni wa de chi ge na ba da de mo che ba de se kan yi ko na ke ji den be na de de ba de pyjun le ge ge jidar ga de ne yin zam de sho 로데 코바토 앞에 대다 탐지 시기지 캐된 점보스 벽에 닫아 좀 봐. 벽에 닫아 좀 봐다. 스타로게 됐던 거다. 깨게 되니 되지. 로데 코바토 앞에 해서. So the first one, all it overcomes all opposing challenge, right? So this refers to all the distorted views, distorted views and perverted views. right. Now, what does it refers to, right? It refers to, it say, it overcomes all opposing challenges. So, this it refers to the kind of teaching, that we already discussed, that this teaching, the teaching which is possessed, or teaching which is possessed with three features, right. The first one is the feature of the pacification of the suffering, the feature of the pacification of the delusion, and then the feature of the feature of leading to eternal joy, right, eternal peace. So, this kind of teaching, right, this kinds of teaching. Now, what that teaching is? So, the teaching of dependent origination, right, the teaching of that teaching of dependent origination having the three qualities, right, as we discuss right now. These three qualities, and then this teaching overcomes the teaching of dependent arising, overcomes all opposing challenges. Now, this really, this verse also pretty profound, because as we in one of our verse we already discussed that, in earlier verse we already discussed that in early times, in early those ancient ancient traditions, so that refers to some of the traditions which flourished, Buddha, before Buddha Dharma, before Buddha Dharma came into being. There are some many ancient traditions in India, very profound, really profound. Profound means some philosophical background. The how to say, the tradition better use, better not use faith, rather tradition, because these are the tradition based on many philosophical background, have philosophical background. So, rich in the idea of philosophical background. That means when it comes to taming the mind, disciplining the mind, so many of the methods are already there, already there in many of the early traditions, like Samkhya philosophy, some Charvakaya, although they are materialistic, they do not nihilist, we call, but they have on their some understanding, explaining the things. Then so there are many, right. I do not know this in how in English, these different traditions, Jain, right, one is Jain, one is Trangzhenpa Jain, and then Cherbua, we call Cherbua means naked, the philosophy of naked, Jain, that is refers to Jain, right. And also there is some Trangzhenpa, I think Samkhya, maybe Samkhya, because Samkhya there are two, one who believe in the creator and one who does not believe in the creator, right. So, there are many other the well known is, but as far as we understand, there are 6 different traditions which are rich in philosophical background, right, 6 different traditions. So, they talk about they talk about the many kinds of means and methods to bring an end to suffering, and also how to achieve the salvation, right, nirvana, we call nirvana, salvation. So, but from the perspective of the Buddhist perspective, because they do not accept the dependent arising, they do not accept the dependent origination, right. They do not accept causal dependent origination, the dependent origination of the parts and the whole, and the dependent origination of the mental imputation, or conceptual conceptual designation. They don't accept this. So, from the Buddhist viewpoint and from that perspective of accepting the dependent arising, they do not accept these 6 traditions, ancient traditions. They do not accept the dependent arising. So, therefore, the method which they employ, the method that they used to counteract or to bring an end to the afflictions and the suffering is what is unrealistic. Why it is unrealistic is because the method, now for example, as we discussed last time, for example, like taking some shower, taking a shower in the holy place, holy pilgrimage sites, right? And then there are many like fire, involve fire rituals, and then fasting, in some cases sacrifice. All these methods are not not the right method, because let alone these methods bring an end to suffering. These methods are like they are they are being called the suffering, calling the faults, calling upon the faults, the shortcomings, because the methods do not in no way bring an end to suffering. It further strengthens the grasping, what we call a grasping or self-centered attitude, right? It further strengthens. Finally, the reason is because in order to totally bring an end to suffering, we need the wisdom. So, they have no, maybe they do talk about some wisdom, they do talk about wisdom, but that wisdom is not something the superior wisdom, what we call a superior wisdom, because they temporarily suppress, because they have very profound meditation experience, they do have some profound meditation, because in order to take a rebirth, in order to take a birth in the form and formless realm, you need a profound meditation, right? Some kind of meditation, So, this they even do have this more profound meditation experience, but then this profound meditation experience that they have is just for temporary, temporary suppress, truly they are suppressed, right? No doubt they are temporarily suppressed, there is no way that they negative thoughts, afflictions arise, because they have already suppressed. But then, because the problem is, because they haven't destroyed from the root, then again it returns back. It returns back. As we already talked that those arhat, we have the arhat, right? We call some Hinayan arhat, and those arhat, in the lower schools. In the lower schools, they talk about arhat. There are few arhat really. The arhat being taught in the Vabhishika school, right, or Saudharandika school. In the two lower schools, they do have the the arhat. So, what happened is, because they relied on the kind of the wisdom, that wisdom, a kind of wisdom, the empty of what we call as empty of substantial entity, the wisdom which perceive the things as empty of substantial entity, that is gross wisdom. So, with this wisdom, they are temporarily able to suppress, So, while they are alive, there is no way that they can get some kind of very rough like when we get some kind of upset, or face, get angry, red, all these things, right? So they don't have this because they have temporarily suppressed all these things. So the gross, emotions, negative emotions cannot arise in them, right? There is no way that gross emotions can manifest because they have cultivated the wisdom that is gross wisdom. Then what happens is, then at the point of death, at the point of death, what really happens is the craving arises, the attachment arises, because where does the craving arises? Where does the attachment arises? Right? In some way, we say there are, these, craving or the attachment. At the point of death, these things arises because all this arises from the root, from the what we call a seed. The seed has not abandoned. They do not have abandoned the seed. So long as there is a seed, when the causes and conditions come together, all these things are manifest, right? Then here, interesting thing is whether they identify, these arhat identify the subtle, the subtle dualistic appearances, the subtle, afflictions. Do they identify the subtle afflictions? Is questionable, because they, in order to, they need to identify afflictions. In order to identify these afflictions, they need to identify the grasping. They do not identify the grasping, subtle grasping, right? If they identify the subtle grasping, then they then they may be very close to emptiness, right? So anyway, then the affliction arises at the point of death. Then they begin to develop a doubt. They begin to develop a doubt, some kind of doubt towards the Buddha. Because how they do develop doubt is Buddha. They thought, oh, Buddha said, if you bring in through the through the wisdom, with the cultivation of wisdom, we can bring an end to suffering. But that is not the real. I have already destroyed the afflictions. Still, I get emotions. Still, I get negative emotions. Because why? Because they have not destroyed the seed, right? So therefore, because of this doubt, they take a birth in the lower realm. Because negative emotion, no doubt, bring take a,